Hey folks, I'm Steve Voigt, Plane Maker. I want to do a couple videos on adjusting and using and maintaining wooden planes. And the first one today is on how to hammer adjust a wooden plane. When I do hand tool events around the country, people always come up to me and they say, I have a really hard time learning how to adjust a plane with a hammer. And it's actually a really simple process. I think that sometimes people are just missing one step or another in the process. So what I want to do is just give you a full understanding of how it works and make sure not to skip any steps. Okay, so let's get started. The first thing is you got to have a couple conditions fulfilled before you can adjust a wooden plane. First, your plane has to have a good fitting wedge. If the wedge doesn't fit properly, it's just not going to work. You're not going to be able to adjust it easily. So it doesn't have to be a new plane, it could be an old plane, but the wedge has to work okay. Second thing, and this might not be obvious, but the sole needs to be tuned, which means it needs to be flat. And I'll do another video on how to flatten the sole of a wooden plane, which is really easy. But if your sole is not flat, your plane's not going to perform, and it's going to be really hard to adjust because you're not going to be able to sight down it and see that the projection is what you want it to be. Okay, so you got to have a flat sole. And then the next thing is you got to have the right tools for adjusting your plane. I like to use two hammers for adjusting a plane. The first is a dead blow mallet. I got this one at Lee Valley. I think it's about 20 bucks, maybe a little more. This is really useful for removing an iron from a plane because it's nice and heavy. For the actual fine adjustments, you need a lighter hammer. This is a plane adjusting hammer. This one's from Sterling Tool Works. It's a really nice hammer. You don't have to get an expensive one. Again, Lee Valley sells fairly inexpensive ones. So, lots of things will work. For a while, I used this homemade hammer. I made it out of a piece of 3/4 brass hex stock and a piece of lignum vitae. That was a bad idea, by the way. You should use something soft if you're going to make your own mallet. But this worked pretty well for a while. So lots of things will work. Just make sure that you have these two hammers. Okay, so let me start from the beginning. This plane's already set up. Let's see how it works. You can tell that it's making nice, smoother shavings. Okay, nice kind of see-through shavings. It's real good for smoothing. Starting from the beginning, if I want to remove the iron to sharpen it or whatever, take your heavy mallet, give it a whack. Iron pops right out. That's easy. And then once you've sharpened it, you want to put it back in. So, just put your plane on your bench top, drop the iron in, make sure it's kind of centered in the aperture, stick the wedge in, give it a tap. You don't have to hit it real hard, just give it a tap so that it doesn't pop out. And then sight down. So when I'm sighting down this sole, I can tell that it's projecting on that side, but not on that side. So it's a little uneven. So I'll just give it a tap on the edge to just kind of rotate the iron. That helped almost. A little more. Sight down again. That looks pretty good to me. So now I'm going to tap the wedge in. You notice I'm not wailing on the wedge, just, several firm taps till you can feel that it's seated. Okay. That looks like it's going to cut pretty well to me, maybe a little on the heavy side, but let's find out. And indeed, you could probably tell from the sound and from my physical effort that it was really on the heavy side. It's a big, heavy cut. Okay. So, I want to reduce the depth of cut. All I have to do is either hit it there or hit it here on the heel. Okay? I'll do it here. This is where I usually do it, but again, it doesn't make any difference. So I just gave it a light tap and then tap the wedge. And that's better. Those shavings look pretty good. Take a nice slow one to see if it's cutting evenly. I think it might be cutting just a tiny, tiny bit heavy on the left side. Yep, so again, I'll just take my mallet, the brass side of my mallet, give it a little tap. And that looks real good. I'm getting reasonably wide shavings. My iron is a little cambered, as it should be. But shavings look good. There's a nice full one. Okay, you can see that. All right. So if I wanted to loosen it or lighten the depth of cut even more, give it another little tap. It may not cut anything now. Yeah, and as I predicted, it's not cutting anything. Well, barely, nothing useful. Okay, so to increase the depth of cut, just hit the iron directly. And now it's cutting again. And those shavings look real good. Again, nice and sort of feathered out at the edges. Okay, I can feel that there's not really any plane tracks. Looks good to me. Okay, so that's really all there is to it. Just to recap, smack the toe or the heel to release the iron. Hit the top of the iron to increase the depth of cut. Hit the sides of the iron, here or here, to correct a skew if it's cutting unevenly, more on one side than the other. And then lightly hit the toe or the heel to retract the iron and lessen the depth of cut. And then always make sure you give the wedge itself a tap when you're done. And you'll probably notice I use this is actually Delrin, it's plastic. I use the plastic end, or on some mallets it's a wooden end, to hit the wedge or to hit the plane itself. And then I use the brass end to hit the iron itself. Okay, and that way you avoid damage. And if you use the dead blow mallet to release the iron, you also avoid damage to the plane body as well. Okay, so that's all there is to it. Thanks for watching.